Hi everyone, Nas here from Info.Tech.Journal. Today's gonna be a fun-filled episode and video journal entry because we're gonna tackle this beast. We're still in our Java PowerShell journey, and this particular one, I'm gonna demonstrate to you and explain each component in this particular script. This is the script that I chose for this particular project. The end goal of this script is to actually ascertain or get information whether a certain process has a valid certificate with Microsoft. So in order for us to do that, there's basically a few components that we need to tackle in the creation of this script. A few of the items we've already discussed previously in the previous videos, but on this particular video, we're gonna add on a few more things. We're gonna tackle on and add on a few more commandlets in our PowerShell toolkit in order for us to achieve this particular script. And hopefully, with the knowledge acquired, you will be able to make your own scripts in the future. So let's dig in and go a bit deeper in this particular script. As you can see, this script has a few moving parts to it. Again, we're gonna go with our favorite, which is get process. That's the first part that hopefully by now everybody is quite familiar with it, with get process. This get process, we will use this commandlet, which is get authentication code signature. For this one, we'll explain a bit further later. So our task would be to get authentication code ... This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna figure out and understand what we need to pass in order for it to get the results, especially the validity or the absence of a certificate. From there, we're gonna try to understand the for each. If you see here, for each, now we're gonna understand for each. Okay, for this particular one, it's actually for each object. So you can consider this part right now as an abbreviation or an acronym to it. So for each. So you notice here, this for each, if you have any familiarity with any programming language, this for each actually starts the condition from here and ends all the way to this side. So we're gonna try to understand everything that goes in between, right? So we're gonna try to understand everything that goes in between. So we're gonna do for each as well in this particular video. So we're gonna see for each and an example of it and how to actually implement it. And also I'm gonna give you some tips here and there to use for each with the custom objects to create custom headers. So we'll be discussing that a bit more in this video as well. Another thing that we want to add is, if you noticed with this particular script, I'm adding a few properties to the object that we get back from get process. So we're getting get process and we're doing something with each process, which is namely get certificate code signature. When we get that signature, I'm gonna use add member. Okay, I'm gonna say here add member and add on to that particular object that we get back the node property and the name of the node property with some conditions again, if and else conditions. For the if and else, in this particular video, I'll just briefly explain to you if and else because it's a basic syntax, basic structure in programming. So hopefully the one viewing this video already has understanding, because if else, there's not a lot of differences between a PowerShell if you do Java or C Sharp for that matter. So I'm just gonna discuss through it here very briefly. From there, we are using add member. Okay, again, after add member, we'll discuss what specifically with add member brings to the table. Lastly, we already discussed where object previously. Format table. In this particular video, we'll just go through it very briefly, namely how I format the table output to the parameters that I'm interested in. So without further ado, let's dig in. Now, we have our PowerShell. Previous videos, I've been using console, so this time I'm going to change it up a bit. I'm going to use ISC. We have that script available here. Just to give you a basic understanding, I'm going to run it. So I'm going to run. For this particular one, if you look at the certificate, I'm not interested in the ones that are valid. I'm actually looking at the ones that are not valid, or the ones that I don't have access to check whether that certificate is valid or not valid. So you see here, not signed and denied. This is actually shortened, access denied. So if I was to just change it really quick, I'm just gonna say auto size, and let's just run it again. So it's running again with auto size. See, it'll take a while because this particular command actually goes back to Windows to just check Microsoft, just to check the status of the cert. Okay, you can see here now it comes back. That took a bit longer than expected. We just auto size. I just wanted to show you a bit clearer when it says access denied is actually access denied rather than showing you dot dot dot. So before we start anything else, just a quick refresher. Okay, how about if I was not interested to just change this maybe to not signed. If I just say not signed, I will see all the valid ones as well. So let's just rerun it again. And we wait. Takes a while for this one because it's actually saying not signed, and then the valid ones there's a lot more valid ones. So let's just wait a bit longer here. While we wait, let's just go back to full screen so you have a better view. Okay, as you can see here, now we have all those valids. So hopefully you remember where objects, and this is your pipe variable, and it takes the property of search status and says if it's not equal to not signed, okay, then we will just select those. So hopefully you brush off a few cobwebs. If not, there's a previous video you can actually view that again. This just shows you the basic functionality of the script. So this is the name of the process, and let's go back. This is the name of the process. I say in terms of Firefox, and I want it to be the ID, which is this is the ID, and this is the search status. So valid, non-valid. Okay. Now let's proceed to our next element. What is the next element we want? So I'm going to clear this. I'm going to CLS. If you already know before, we can also say clear host. So the host is now cleared. So first thing we want to do is to get a basic understanding of Get-AuthenticodeSignature. Okay, what is Authenticode-Signature? As usual, if you're not sure about something, we just can say get help. Okay, we're going to say get Authenticode-Signature. And for this one, I'm going to say show window. Show window. I say shop, I say show window. Enter. Okay, as a simple synopsis, hopefully you can read it. It gets information about Authenticode-Signature for a file. So with this, we're going to look at syntax. The basic syntax of this one is actually get authenticode, and it takes in a file path parameter, which is a system string. So that is the one we want to focus on, because with get process, there's actually a property that tells us where that process is as or the file path. So if you're not sure how I got to that point, you can just say here, we're going to minimize this. We're going to say get process, and I'm going to pipe it to get member. Okay, get process, get member. So if you notice here that we have this property, this is script property, is path. So it gives this module file path. So it basically tells you the path of that particular process. Again, if you want to just check, let's just say get process, okay, and I am gonna select object. Oh wait, let's make it a bit smaller. Get process name. I always use Firefox, so just say name. Firefox. Let's say select object. Okay, property. Of course, I'm gonna say the name and path. As you can see here, when I do this, it actually gives you the file path of where my Firefox exe exists, where it actually lives. So we can verify that this is the file path that we want. So in order for us to try, let's look at a simple example. If we get AuthenticodeSignature, we provided a file path. Okay, as a refresher, this file path is in square brackets. That means it is an optional name to be put in. It has a location position with it. So if you look at this, if you get a file path, you go to file path, the perimeter listing, perimeter file path, the position is set to 0. It is not named. Okay, if it's named, that means you have to type the name in. If it's 0, that means as long as it is the first one, it basically means PowerShell has the smarts in it to actually figure out what you're trying to pass to it. So we're gonna say get AuthenticodeSignature, and we're gonna use Firefox. So let's just go here, get AuthenticodeSignature, file path. I'm gonna copy the file path. Here, Control E, copy, and paste. Enter. Okay, because it doesn't like that they have spaces. Let's put the quotation marks in, because with PowerShell or with any scripting language, it doesn't like that particular space because it thinks that you're trying to have 2 strings rather than 1 string. So don't panic if you see that, just put a quotation mark in it. As you can see here, we've done get authentication code with the file path and Firefox, and it says Firefox is valid, and the signature certificate is this one. So now let's figure out how we're gonna pass that into our program. So you know that already there's a path, and there's this path available, this path property within the get process, as we can check here with get member just now. And now we've successfully passed that in with the get authentication code signature, and this is the file path. If we go back here, that's this part. We already got this part, get process, and then with this and the file path. So as an example of what I'm trying to mention now, or a brief overview of what we did, let's go back to our whiteboard. If you look at our whiteboard again, what we've basically done is just to test that we can actually use whatever get process sends us, and what get process has, basically get process has a property within it called path. When we pass it to get authentication code signature, right, this path, when we use it, remember when we pass it along, we use our pipe variable, which is $_ underscore dot, okay, and then the name path. this is what is used by Get-AuthenticodeSignature. Now we've done that first part. That first part, we've understood it. We know how we got there. So it's actually quite powerful. It's quite useful for you to actually know how we break up this script. So you can use the same idea, the same concept in making your own script. So we tested piece by piece. So the first part is done. The first part is done. Next thing we want to look at is for each. What does this for each do? So you know that means that when we use get process, when we just run get process, right? This is the heading. So heading with the parameter name listing. So every line is a known object. So for each of these objects, we are gonna perform whatever is within these curly brackets, or whatever instructions we're gonna perform, whatever instructions we're gonna do for each and every one of them. So let's go through an example, or a simple example of how we can actually use for each. Let's go back to our PowerShell. So I'm going to clear this again. Let's just make a simple variable. So I'm going to say variable numbers, I guess, numbers. So I'm going to say variable numbers, hold in a few numbers. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 5 and 5. So you know now that variable numbers holds these particular numbers. So I'm just going to recall it again. So we know hold 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and 5. So how do we get this to iterate and show us? And again, you can just simply type this, or let's just use an example of for each. So I'm going to say there's number variable. I'm going to pass it to for each object. For each object. Okay, for each object, simply whatever's done in these curly brackets is the execution part of each element. So I'm just gonna recall the numbers. So I can use this, or remember that we have PS item. Similarly, it's the same. So I'm gonna say PS item. It does nothing right now. It just shows us the output again. So I'm gonna just type enter, and it will show this again. Hopefully you remember that the pipe variable can be represented in both ways. So if you just do this, it's okay as well. This is PowerShell version 1 and 2. This is more recent, PowerShell 3 and above. For backwards compatibility, you can use this. But if you see it in common literature or examples right now, they do use this quite often. So don't be confused, it's the same thing. Now, let's do something additional to this. Let's say that we just want to verify the number is an integer or if it's a double. Hopefully you know what an integer and a double is. So basically, we just say is it something. So I'm going to say is it an integer. Hopefully you remember we did this with casting on one of our previous videos. So you can just say square brackets integer. For this one, the value is going to be slightly different. If you type enter, it's going to now say true, 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 false. But if you just look at this, you have to refer back to the numbers before that. So we want to somehow make this visible with each other. One way to do that is actually if we just say $_ and you just say the double colons, double colon. You can see that means this does whatever action is in this curly brackets again. So the first part is just show me what the number is, and this is do this comparison for the second part. So I actually say 1 true, 2 true, 3 true, and so forth. But this is not as nice because you have to see top and bottom. There's another way to do this is actually having some custom objects for headers, or we're making additional objects for the header. So in order for us to do that, okay, let's just something simple. I am gonna go back here. The first part is we have to use this with a select object. So for each is still the same. For each is still the same because we're gonna, with the operation is done within the curly brackets. We want it done still repeatedly. Okay. So for that one, we will say what is the pipe variable that we want. We will then pass it because this is part of select. So select. Okay. With select, you're gonna say at, and then open bracket, open curly brackets, and close curly brackets. This is the part we're gonna add our custom object or custom header. So I'm gonna say here, we're just gonna say something simple. We're gonna say name equals, yeah, we're gonna say number, close bracket. And then don't forget, with this, we have to say this is the header we want. What is the expression? What is the content? Okay, so we're gonna say expression. If I can spell expression correctly. Expression now equals, we have to say open curly brackets, close curly brackets. Okay. So now you can see that open curly brackets, close curly brackets. We're gonna say simply here just the variable again. There's no harm or there's no limits in terms of how many times you call the pipe variable. It's just telling you that, okay, we need this here, we need that here. It's just calling it again. So if you notice there, there's a squiggly red line underneath. So I'm missing one. Here's another thing I just want to point out. This is quite helpful. When I was still using this early on, I didn't notice that if you were to use your arrow button and on the curly brackets, if you hover over them, you can see those slight highlights. And let me make it bigger so you can see it. So you see those highlights? It actually highlights where the matching curly brackets are. Okay. So I'm actually missing one. Let's just add another one. And as you can see here, it says number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no limit to this. We can actually add another one. So what do we mean by another one? We're just gonna add another header. So in order for us to add another header, we actually just go back to the command again and we press up arrow. Hopefully you can see that. Yeah, where we have our first selection here. Yeah, we have our first selection. Okay, when we close that selection, this is closing the particular selection. Okay, then we have to just add another comma. We add another comma. When we add that another comma, what do we want to do again? Same thing. We just do an add. Close brackets, open brackets. Okay, this is the primary one we want, which is inside, and we're just gonna add the name again. Just say equals, and this one is int question mark or something like that. Okay. And then don't forget we have colon expression equals, then we have our curly brackets again. So what is the expression we wanted? The expression is going to be the same, where we check it's going to be a valid integer or not. So we say is close the square brackets. Make sure we have everything closed properly. As you can see, we're missing one more curly brackets. And let's type enter. As you can see here, now we have number and is int, true, and it false. Basic overview again, or a basic recap. When we're doing this, we pass it our first variable. We're gonna pass it into for each. In for each, okay, there's no harm in you piping in terms of its for each loop sequence. So this is the for each loop sequence. So whatever is on in this until the last curly bracket. So we're gonna say here, we're gonna do, again, we're gonna use the pipe variable. We're gonna pipe it into select. With select, we're gonna use the @. The @ is the indicator that we want a custom object for the header. With the custom object for the header, there's a minimum of 2 elements that you need to add, which is firstly the name. What is the name of the header itself? And then what is the following expression or the data set that's gonna be within that column. In order for us to add another one, make sure that it's still within the select okay area here. We just say comma and add again the same 2 components that we want, the name and the expression. I know it's a bit confusing. As you follow along, experience it a bit more, you'll get a bit more familiar in terms of how you structure each basic section of the pipe and when to actually use the curly brackets to indicate the area. Now let's continue. From this, let's contrast it back to our script. In order for us to do that, let's go back to our whiteboard. Okay, it's a bit messy, so let's just I'm gonna copy this and let's all paste it in another page. Okay, and I'm gonna wipe it clean. Okay, there's a few things that I want to show you again, or just to reiterate or reinforce. Okay, we have this for each. For each starts here. Okay, and this is our first curly brackets. This is our first curly brackets. That curly bracket that you see here is actually paired with this curly bracket. Right. So everything you see in between, everything you see in between, from here all the way to here, is actually what is done or what is executed for each element of the get process. Okay. Another thing I want you to notice is, remember when we did that additional colon to just put in the extra information? For here, if I want to show you this, since you already know that you can do this. You notice that there's a colon that's highlighted a bit, and I'm using this again, which is the pipe variable. There's a reason why I'm doing that for this one. Get authentication code signature file path and that colon right there. Colon right there. Okay, let's go to why I'm doing that as of right now. So let's go back to our PowerShell. Okay, let's go back to PowerShell. If I say get process, okay, and I say, this is for all process, and I say select object, property and path. Yeah, I'm gonna just let it wait. If you notice that some paths are not visible or not available, okay. So some path is not available. So with our try catch block, the way we're doing with our try catch block is as such. Yeah, since you already understood what this does, what this particular thing does. Okay, let's just wipe it off. With our try catch, okay, hopefully you have basic understanding of a try catch. We try, okay, this expression, and then if this doesn't end, we catch it with something else. But if you notice that when I'm catching it, I don't put in anything else. There's nothing here. So because I just want to make it continue to execute, because when this does not have a path in it, what do you think is going to happen to it get Get-AuthenticodeSignature when there's no valid path. When the path is null, it's gonna return null, or it's gonna return something you won't expect. So in order for us to make sure that the script still runs, I use this just to make sure that it still passes that variable along, because I don't want to just pass it this information. I also want to use this as catch. So if I were to do that, and we go back to our initial script, let's go back to our initial script. Here, let's say if I were to clean this off, and I'm gonna just delete this, right? You notice that it's there, an empty pipe element is not allowed. Basically, it's saying that, oh, this has the chance to be empty, so you can't do that. Right. So hopefully you understood that, because we're not actually going to go through try catch, because it's just a safety mechanism. You can change the script a bit if you wanted to actually only save the make it as a save variable, and save the variable with only processes with valid path. That's a separate video altogether if you want to do that, but I'm just explaining to you right now just a quick overview of a try catch, because I don't want this to terminate if this particular command did not produce any results. Okay. Oh, now we've already looked at for each object. So let's just have a quick overview again for each object. If you're here, we've used for each object, and then we've also used custom objects. Hopefully you have a basic understanding now of for each object, and you can actually apply it here. If not, you can just go through again the video. That's the beauty of having it in a video. You can actually just repeat the explanation in slow time, so you can actually experiment with it yourself. Okay, enough said for each object. Let's continue on. If you notice that every time I say for each object, it gets the signature code authentication here with the file path and the catch, and I'm passing another pipe variable. From there, I'm gonna only select name, ID, path, and description. That's what I'm going to select. Hopefully you still remember what select is. Select is, again, select object. Select object with these properties, and now I'm gonna add a member. Let's do a quick explanation of add member. So I'm gonna escape here. Okay, let's go add member. So first thing first, if you're not sure what add member is, I hope you know that I'm gonna say get help, and also say get member. I'll add member. And I'm gonna say full. So this time I'm gonna show it here. What does add member do? Okay, let's scroll the way up, and then say here, add member, add custom properties and methods to an instance of a PowerShell object. For this particular one, or particular script that we're doing, I'm just gonna add a node property. Okay, and this is the name of the property that I want. Where, of course, this is some conditions. If and something doesn't happen, there's no search status, else it'll just give it access denied. That's just an if and else. So let's play around with add member. If you remember, we had that property or that variable for numbers. We had this numbers just now. If you want to check what is available, what properties are available for this, we just say get number as usual. Now we have the member properties. These are the member properties that we have. If you notice that here we don't have any particular properties, it's all methods. So we're just gonna add one just for an example. So I'm gonna say that variable again, rather than piping it to get member, I'm gonna say add member. Add member. What I'm gonna add? I'm going to add, let's say this is a node property because it's the safest one. Okay, node property. So what's the name of the node property? So I'm just going to call here var1, and I'm going to pass it a string, string var1. Okay, so that is what I'm going to do. Let's go through the command again. I'm going to add member node property. So the name of the node property is var1, and what's inside var1, it's going to be just var1. Enter. If you notice, it doesn't say anything, just a blank line. How do we check it again? We just do get member. And now you can see var1 node property string var1 equals var1. Basically, I'm adding to this object, this variable, okay, that property. Okay. So let's say that we want to print that property, or just show it to make sure that we actually have it. So I'm going to say history. If you remember that what we did before, I'm going to say history. So I'm going to alter this particular command. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, I'm going to right click copy. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to add another custom object header. And that custom object header is basically going to print var1. Okay, so we notice that here, this is the close bracket right there. So I'm going to say space. Maybe not do it here because you can't really see it here. Let's just use the script pane. Okay, just escape this one, and I'm going to open new one. Okay, so here with the script pane, right, you can actually just arbitrarily, not arbitrarily, but then you can just decide where you're going to press enter, and you can see here the plus and minus sign. So rather than having just one straight line of script, you can actually just break it up to make it more readable and more presentable for you. It makes more sense to it as well. So I'm going to put this down here so I know that is the last squiggly line, squiggly brackets. So this is it. So I'm going to say here, remember last time we say comma. Oops, comma. And I'm going to say at, enter. Okay, and from there I'm going to say name equals, I'm going to say this is var. Var, and then colon expression. For the expression, I am gonna just pick, we're gonna use our type variable, and I'm gonna say the variable is of course var1. That is the name of the variable, or the name of the property that we made, so it's var1. So I'm gonna close the bracket again and close that bracket, so we know that is part of that one, and close this, and we run this. As you can see now, number is init and var. Okay, we just added that property in, and of course all of them are going to be var1 because we just added var1. It's not for each where we made each object had its own specific value. Okay, we're just saying, okay, for this particular group, we're just going to say var1. Let's go back to our whiteboard. I'm going to point out to you something interesting, or just something that you might want to take note, especially if you're doing scripting. This is what tripped me up initially when I was doing my own script. Okay, if you notice, okay, I'm going to wipe this clean. Okay, if you notice that when I use add member, let's pick a note. See, add member. Okay, this is the name of the property that we want to add, the name of the property. Okay, at the very end, you notice that we have this pass-through. Okay, by default, if you use add member, the command lit does not generate any output. So what does it mean if it doesn't generate any output? Let's say you're expecting add member, right? Okay, and you're piping it to some sort of action right here. So regardless of it's by name or by value, you have to pass it something. If the default of add member returns nothing, this part, the action, no matter what the action is, if something times nothing, it's going to be nothing. So that's why we use pass through. I'll show you later what pass through says. Pass through and the help menu. Pass through basically just says, okay, I will return the parameter, I will return or generate an output to pass along. Okay, the formal setting, we'll look at it a bit later. So that's why when I say pass through here, pass through, pass through, pass through, just to make sure that each step of what I pipe has a certain value. So let's say I'm going to say pass through here, and I say pass here, and this has some sort of action as well, right? So it's okay. But sometimes when I was developing my own script or experimenting, I would forget this, and I would wonder, why is it not returning anything? Oh, there's nothing being done. Why is it empty? So let's just show you really quick on PowerShell what I mean. Okay, so let's go back here, and we know this thing works already. So let's just delete one of the pass-throughs, and it's right. It's gonna take a while. Take a while, take a while, take a while, and then you don't know what's gonna happen or what's happening, because it doesn't really tell you, because it's not really a fault per se. It's just nothing. Remember in the previous video that we actually have a variable null, and it's null, it's actually valid. As you can see here, it returns nothing. If you notice, it's the same action performed as when we were doing this one. Notice? It doesn't show anything. So let's do this particular action again and add another variable and say, and then we're gonna say variable 2 this time. Okay, we're gonna return that with pass through. So I'm gonna copy this. Where is it? Okay, we're gonna copy this. Copy. I'm gonna paste it in. Okay, we can't use var1 again. If you say var1, it's just gonna hate you for it, because we already use var1. So like, oh, cannot add member name var1, because of course var1's there. It doesn't override it. So let's just make another variable. Okay, let's just say here var2. And var2. Okay, please close attention. I'm gonna say pass through here, and when I say pass through, it actually initiates the output, and it actually shows us. That's the difference between saying pass through and not saying pass through. So if you look at this, not this one, let's get back to get help. Okay, and add member. I'm gonna say full. If you look at that particular name, the name pass through for parameters. Okay, parameters again. And if you look at pass through, where's pass through? Pass through returns an object representing the item in which you are working. So basically, whatever item that you're working with, it will return that particular output out. Okay, remember here, by default, this command does not generate any output. So that's why if you're doing this, make sure you have the pass-through parameter set. So if not, you're just gonna spin your wheels. So that's an advice from one person who spun his wheel more than one time doing this. Okay, so basically that is how we get it to pass through and then pass it along. So another example would be if we were to, let's string int. Okay, I'm gonna say we had that integer just now. So what was our variable? Number. Our variable was number. So rather than adding member directly, right, we're gonna do, let's just go here. It's easier to do it here. So this is my numbers. I'm gonna say for each and all this expression as well, right? So we're gonna change this. We've already done variable 3 if I'm not mistaken. Let's check var2. Okay, how do I check whatever variables I have? I'm gonna say again this with number, and I'm gonna say get member, or short form or alias of gm. So get member. So I'm sure. So I have var1 and var2. There's no var3 right now. So in order for that to show us this one, I am gonna combine the two together. So how am I gonna combine the two together? Let's go back up so I can show you what we did. Okay, this is what we did. Add member. So I'm gonna copy this. Okay, there's no harm in actually trying this. So I'm gonna say add member. I'm gonna paste it there, and I'm gonna pipe it. Paste, pipe, paste, and then. Doesn't like that one. Okay, if it doesn't have that the plus sign there, that means these two are, it considers it as two separate ones. So you just make sure where you typing enter. So we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna not give it a pass-through. So rather than having pass-through, we're gonna say here var3 and var3, and you notice this, when I'm doing this, I don't have pass-through parameter set, so I'm passing for each nothing. So if I press play here, okay, and it shows us nothing. Nothing is being shown right there. But if I say get member again for numbers, okay, if I say get member for numbers, you see that var3 is already there. So let's just do this again. Remember, we can't use the same variable name. So I'm going to say var4, and here's var4, and I'm going to change this one to var4. And don't forget, we're going to say here pass through. And remember when we did this initially here, it didn't show anything. It just basically just shows the space before giving us again the PS Windows System32 prompt. So we're going to say pass through here. I'm going to say play. And you can see here, now it actually shows us that particular input because we're actually passing for each the results of add member. Okay. Now let's do something further. We've already discussed that. Now hopefully you understand when I select an object from here, I add member node property, and this is the if statements. Basically in get authentication code, we have a status result, because remember this digicert variable, okay, this digicert variable is actually storing this result. Okay. If you're not sure, I can just say get authentication code. What was the file name we had? It's just a history. I think we did Firefox. Let's go Firefox. Yeah, this is Firefox. Let's copy this one. I'm gonna copy it. I'm gonna paste it in. Okay, and I'm gonna just say gm get member, and you can see here we have status. So basically, this is the structure. Now we say dg status. If it doesn't have any status, just say access denied. Okay, and then we pass through. We have another add member node property, which is a subject. Okay, we have the node property subject to be added. For subject, we actually having signature certificates dot subject. Okay, basically this is accessing digicert signature certificate, and within signature certificate there's a subject in it, so we're going to use subject. So if you were thinking about it in an object-oriented programming style, this would be the grandchild, this would be the parent, and this would be the grandparent. Right? So we're going to do that subject, and we're also going to say pass through, and we're going to also add member again, node property, thumbprint. Oh, don't do that. Thumbprint, digicert signature certificate, thumbprint. So the specificity on get authentication code signature is not the main point right now. The main point of this video is just for you to string through various properties that you can add, and then you can loop through it to add additional properties and effectively make your own script. So this is just the basic components of what we're doing with this script. Lastly, last 2 points here is we're going to say where object cert certificate is not signed. Okay, I actually don't want to see valid. So when it's valid, I don't want to see it, because this particular script is for me just to check my processes and to make sure that all the processes that I have valid is not listed here. That means nobody has tampered with it. And let's go for the last one, which is format table. Format table is pretty straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. It just says format a table. So let's say if we say get process, okay, get process, and I'm gonna say GM again, get member. So with this one, we have virtual memory. We're gonna say virtual memory, and we're gonna pick a few properties, just a few properties. Let's say virtual memory and okay, name, virtual memory, and session ID, for instance. So I'm gonna say get process. Process as usual. I'm gonna limit it to Firefox. Okay, and I'm gonna say format table. Format custom format table. Okay, for format table, we actually say property. If you're not sure why I didn't include property there, again, if we look at property, it's most likely a location based parameter. So rather than doing this, let's just go, let's just complete this and then I'll show you what I mean. Property, I'm gonna say name, and then I say I want virtual memory size. Okay, paste, not that, I didn't paste properly. Let's go back. Virtual memory size, copy and paste, and that's just that. And then last one, let's just say auto size. Basically, auto size means it just makes sure that whatever word it has contained within that column, it's fully stretched and visible. As you can see now, this is the different table than what we would get if we were just to say get process Firefox. Where the typical one, we have handles, NMP, PM, WS, CPU, ID, SI, and process name. But for this one, we actually changed the table and we're just showing it name and virtual memory size. And again, with auto size, we don't get that truncated view or dots. Okay. What I mean by property, as you can see here, let's just say get help, format table, and say full again as usual. And let's go to parameters. In parameters, let's just go to syntax first. If you notice here, syntax format table, that again is in the square brackets. That means that particular name, the name for that parameter doesn't have to be specified as long as it's in a position that's probably 0 or 1. Let's see, property, and then position 0. So that's why in this particular one I did not say property, but there's no harm in saying property here as well if you want. Okay. But that's how it is for that one. Okay, hopefully in this video you know how I got to my script, my final script. So the final script is actually just to get certificates based on the processes that are running. And the flow is actually, first we're gonna get process. What are the processes they are? And I'm gonna pass that get process to for each. In the for each process, every process in that for each, I'm gonna strip out its property for path. That path property, I'm gonna put it in Get-AuthenticodeSignature. From there, it will produce a result. Okay, if it doesn't produce a result, it's a blank, and I'll return it back the original pipe variable. And the original pipe variable. In the original pipe variable, okay, hopefully you know. In the original pipe variable, okay, this is the original pipe variable. So we put in path, if not, it'll just be empty and the original pipe variable. After we've done this, we perform this. For each of them, I'm gonna select name, ID, path, and description. That is the one I have. I'm gonna select those. And I'm going to add these additional node properties. So 1, 2, 3 node properties. In the 3 node properties, basically search status. In search status, I'm going to say if the search status, okay, the search status, I've already told you that status is part of the authentication code signature. It's properties, and then the status. In the status, If there's nothing there, then I'll just say access denied. That is the if statement that is being performed here. Don't forget that we have pass through. Don't forget we have pass through, just to make sure that we're not sending nulls to the next pipe execution or the next activity. So the next activity here is we're gonna say, and again we're gonna say add member, not properly subject. In this one, it is actually the subject of the search signature based on our variable. The variable is the output of this command. Okay, remember? So from there, we're gonna say pass through again, and add member node property again, thumbnail. Okay, thumbnail. Thumbnail. Sorry, excuse me. Thumbprints. dg-cert again signature. This is the thumbprint property, and it's pass through just to make sure. And then we're gonna pass it into where-object. Hopefully you still remember where-object. Where-object is actually, we're looking at the particular object. Here we're looking at the object search status. We don't want it to be search status valid because I am only interested to see what are not valid. So I'm gonna say not equal to valid. And when I format the table, these are the information that I want. These are the information that I want. Basically, I want the name, I want the ID, I want the search status, and I'm gonna say auto size for that particular one, because when we did the demo just now, it got a bit shortened. So let's say, just to refresh your memory, I'm gonna say auto size. I'm gonna go there, then run a bit. Okay. When we see access denied, you see access denied. If you're interested on how I stop that halfway through, I just say Control-C, Control-C. So without the auto size, it actually says here is ... denied. So if you have auto size, it just shows you a better view of search status, actually the full spelling of access denied. Okay, let's go wait again. That's a while. It takes a while for this because actually there's a few nested. And you see access denied is now full. Yeah, being presented as full. If you say auto size, it does take a while because it's trying to figure out. It's a bit longer. It doesn't spit out one by one. It actually spits out the whole thing when it's done, because if it doesn't look at all the possible strings and its sizes, how does it know that one string is going to be longer or shorter when it's going to be truncated? So it's going to wait. You will have to wait a bit. Okay. So that is it for this video. It's quite intensive. Let's just go through a quick overview. We did get authentication code. We've done this. Okay. And with get authentication code, we've done for each, and we got it member. And we also added a few things here and there, especially the custom objects for headers when you're doing for each. And we've also looked at the gotcha, which is if you don't put pass through, it's gonna get you, and it's gonna pass null to the next pipe action that we're gonna do. So that's an overview or a brief explanation on the different components that I have with my particular script. With this particular video series, the script is totally up to you how you want to execute. So yeah, let's say you have a different script for our Java, PowerShell, and ultimately plus Excel macros. It is up to you on which script you want to take action. The next portion of this video series will be focusing on having a Java front end, how to actually get that PowerShell to execute within Java, and let's combine it with a graphical user interface, add a little flair in there, because as you remember when we did this just now, yeah, it just took a while, especially when you're presenting or if you have somebody in your back. That time frame, it's a bit nerve-wracking. Just to be honest, it is a bit nerve-wracking because you don't know if it's actually running or not. So it's good to have like a status window or progress bar to show you, or something moving just to keep your attention. That's additional that we're gonna add with our Java environment. And the last part is just a bit of bonus. I'm going to show you basically Excel and how to record a macro. So when you open the Excel macro, it'll actually format the tables for you. Okay, hopefully this video has been useful. I know that's a lot to take in. That is certainly a lot to take in. You can watch this again. Please follow along to the next video series where we go into now our Java portion. And I certainly thank you for viewing. And bye-bye.